There comes a time in every life when we are forced to confront doors that seem locked, bolted, and shut with an iron will. Some of these doors are closed by circumstances, some by people, some by systems, and some by our own fears. And often we stand in front of them, wondering if they will ever open again. We knock, we wait, and sometimes we turn away thinking maybe that door wasn't meant for us. But I am here today to speak life into your spirit, to speak truth into your heart, and to remind you of this eternal promise. When God opens a door, no one can shut it. This isn't just a motivational saying. It's a divine assurance. It's more than hope. It is certainty grounded in the authority of the one who holds the universe in his hands. When God opens a door, no person, no enemy, no situation, no system, no mistake, and not even time itself can shut it. That is the power of divine favor. That is the power of a sovereign God. And that is the power working for you even when you cannot see it. Sometimes we feel stuck. We feel like our prayers are hitting the ceiling, like our efforts are going unnoticed, and like every attempt to move forward is met with resistance. We start to question if we heard God correctly. We ask, was that really the path he wanted me to take? We doubt ourselves. We doubt the timing. We even doubt our own worthiness. But let me tell you something. God's open doors are not dependent on your perfection. They are dependent on his purpose. He doesn't open doors because we deserve it. He opens them because he destined them. Think about Joseph in the Bible, thrown into a pit by his own brothers, sold into slavery, falsely accused, and thrown into prison. From the outside, it looked like every door was slammed in his face. Yet, in the middle of all that rejection and confusion, God was preparing a door. And when that door opened, the door that placed him second in command over all of Egypt, no one could shut it, not his brothers, not Potiphar's wife, not Pharaoh's guards, not the lies, not the injustice, not the years lost in waiting. When God's time came, the door opened. And when it did, it was a door of redemption, of restoration, and of power. And what about Esther, a young Jewish woman taken into the king's palace, living in obscurity, trying to hide her identity just to survive? But God had already planned a door that would place her in a position to save an entire nation. She walked through it with courage, knowing that her life was on the line. But that open door was not something man could have orchestrated. It was divinely constructed. And once she stepped through, the destiny of a people changed forever. Now, you may not be standing in a palace or in prison. Maybe your closed doors look like rejection letters, job layoffs, medical reports, broken relationships, or silent seasons. Maybe it feels like nothing is moving and no one is seeing. But I need you to remember this truth. Closed doors are not always denials. Sometimes they are divine delays. Sometimes they are detours meant to protect you from what you cannot yet understand. Sometimes they are meant to redirect you to the very door that God is preparing, one that no man will be able to close once it opens. When God opens a door, it does not come with confusion, it comes with clarity. It may not always be comfortable, but it will be unmistakable. You won't have to manipulate your way in. You won't have to strive endlessly or compromise your values. God's doors don't require deception. They require obedience. And sometimes that obedience is in the waiting. Sometimes it's in the preparation. Sometimes it's in forgiving people who hurt you. Sometimes it's in letting go of what you thought you wanted. But every act of obedience is a step closer to that door swinging wide open. We live in a world obsessed with hustle, connections, and climbing ladders. And while effort matters, God's favor can take you further in one moment than all your efforts could in a lifetime. He doesn't need a committee to approve your breakthrough. He doesn't wait for consensus to bless you. When he speaks, the doors respond. When he commands, opportunities align. When he decides it's your time, no one can say otherwise. Let me speak to the heart that's grown weary. You've been faithful. You've sown seeds in tears. You've served others while waiting for your own miracle. You've stood at the edge of closed doors, hoping something would change. Let this be your reminder. Your labor has not been in vain. Your prayers have not gone unnoticed, and your God has not forgotten you. The very fact that you're still here, still standing, still hoping, is evidence that something is shifting. The door may not have opened yet, but it's not because it won't. It's because God is setting the stage so that when it does open, it opens wide and it opens right. There are moments in life when God not only opens doors for us, but also walks us through them, because sometimes we are too tired, too afraid, or too unsure to move on our own. But He is the kind of Father who doesn't just make a way, He carries us through it. He doesn't just open doors for the strong, He opens them for the weak, the broken, the discouraged, and the disqualified. Because in His kingdom, it's not about qualifications, it's about calling. It's not about perfection. It's about His promise. You may have people around you who try to shut what God is opening. They may doubt you, talk about you, overlook you, or try to block your path. But let them try. Let them speak. Let them build walls, because when God opens a door, it's not just a physical opportunity. It's a spiritual declaration. It is God saying, I have chosen you, I have anointed you, I have made a way. And when that declaration is made, no voice can cancel it. No hand can block it. No authority on earth can override it. Let this settle deep in your heart. God is not just opening any door. He is opening the right door. The one that aligns with your purpose, the one that leads to peace and not chaos, the one that builds rather than breaks, the one that stretches you but does not destroy you, the one that brings Him glory and brings you fulfillment. And sometimes that means other doors will stay closed, not because you're being punished, but because you're being protected. So don't mourn over doors that God has shut. Don't keep knocking on places He's asked you to leave. Don't beg to stay where He's told you to move on. Trust the closure. Trust the no. Trust the silence. Because on the other side of your obedience is an opening. And that opening will not just bless you, it will bless others through you. When God opens a door, it changes more than your position, it changes your vision. You begin to see why the wait was necessary, why the tears were part of the journey, why the silence taught you how to listen, why the isolation refined your character. It all makes sense on the other side of the door, and when you walk through with power, with testimony, and with gratitude. You no longer just see the door, you see the one who opened it. And let me say this, once you've walked through that door, don't forget to help others find theirs. Don't close the door behind you. Don't act as if you did it on your own. Point back to the source. Give glory to the God who makes a way in the wilderness and rivers in the desert. Encourage someone else who's still waiting. Be the reminder that if God did it for you, He can do it for them. Because He is not limited. He is not running out of favor. His resources are endless. His timing is perfect. And His love is unfailing. And as I close, I want you to carry this with you no matter how many times you've been denied, overlooked, rejected, or told you weren't enough. There is a door with your name on it, and not only is it marked for you, it is protected for you. No one else can take what God has reserved for you. You don't have to compete. You don't have to conform. You don't have to beg. All you have to do is stay ready, stay faithful, and stay in position. Because when that door opens, and it will, you won't have to force it. You'll just walk through it. So rise with hope, stand with expectation, let faith fill your spirit, because God is opening a door, and not just any door, a door that no one can shut. And that, my friend, is more than a promise. It is your destiny. When God opens a door, it is not like the opportunities that come from man. It is not dependent on popularity, politics, personal connections, or perfect timing according to human schedules. When God opens a door, it is done with power, authority, and purpose. It does not matter who tries to resist it, who speaks against it, or who doubts it. It remains open because it was opened by the hand of the Almighty. His doors are not temporary or fragile. They are established with a strength that no one can shake. When he opens a door, there is no force in heaven, on earth, or beneath the earth that can close it. That is what makes God's doors irresistible and sovereign. Too often we look at opportunities in life through a limited lens. We measure them based on our qualifications, our relationships, or our timing. We believe that if we don't have the right resume, the right background, or the right resources, the door won't open for us. But God does not work according to our standards. He doesn't look at what man sees. He opens doors according to his will, and when he does, it overrides everything that came before. It doesn't matter how many times someone said no to you. It doesn't matter how many doors were slammed in your face. When it's God's door, it doesn't require man's permission. This truth is powerful because it removes the burden of trying to force our way into places God hasn't prepared for us yet. It teaches us to rest in the knowledge that when the moment is right, and when the purpose is aligned, the door will open in a way that no one can stop. And when it opens, it will not come with confusion, but with peace. It will come with confirmation in your spirit, with clarity in your path, and with strength for the journey ahead. God's timing is never early, never late. It is always precise. Think of how many people in the Bible had doors open for them that no one expected. Moses stood in front of the Red Sea with Pharaoh's army closing in behind him. Every natural door was shut. There was no path forward, no escape route. But God opened a supernatural door through the sea itself. And once that door opened, Israel walked through it on dry ground. Pharaoh's army tried to follow, but they were destroyed. That is a picture of God's authority. He opens a way where there was no way, and no enemy can follow where he has protected you to go. Daniel was thrown into the lion's den, and from every perspective, his life should have ended. But God shut the mouths of the lions and opened a door of deliverance. Again, we see that when God is involved, the natural laws bend to his will. His sovereignty overrules the judgment of man. He does not need to explain his plan. He simply moves and all things begin to align according to his purpose. That is what gives us confidence. Not in ourselves, but in him. The sovereignty of God's open doors should give you peace in every season. You don't have to panic if a door hasn't opened yet. If it's God's will, it cannot remain shut. You don't have to fight people to be seen, noticed, or promoted. If God wants you there, he will place you there. And once he opens that door, the peace of God will guard your heart and mind. You will walk into it not with pride, but with humility, because you'll know it wasn't by your power, it was by his grace. There are some doors that people tried to shut over your life through their words, their doubt, or their betrayal. But none of that can compete with the authority of God. People may walk away, systems may reject you, but when God speaks a yes over your life, no human no can cancel it. That door is established. That calling is secure. That purpose will stand. And you will see in time that what was delayed was not denied. It was being prepared in perfection. God's doors don't swing open through manipulation. They open through prayer, faith, obedience, and trust. And when they open, they remain open because no one can revoke what God has ordained. The moment you truly understand this, your perspective on waiting will change. You'll stop striving and start trusting. You'll stop chasing and start resting, because you'll know deep down that the God who holds all authority is not working against you. He's working for you, and his plans cannot be stopped. So when you stand before a door today, whether it's a career opportunity, a ministry calling, a relationship, or a moment of decision, remember this: if it is God who opened it, you don't need to fear what others say or do. Walk through it with faith. Walk through it with confidence in him, because when God opens a door, no one can shut it. Closed doors are never easy to accept. They bring with them feelings of disappointment, confusion, and sometimes even anger. We often attach our hopes and expectations to specific outcomes, believing that if we can just get through a certain door, everything will fall into place. So when that door closes, whether it's a job opportunity, a relationship, a financial breakthrough, or a long held dream, we feel lost. We wonder where God is in the silence. We question whether He heard our prayers. But the truth is, many times the doors that are closed in our lives are not punishments or failures. They are redirections orchestrated by God to move us closer to the purpose He designed specifically for us. God sees the full picture when we can only see a part. What may seem like a rejection to us may actually be divine protection. What feels like a dead end may be a detour meant to save us from a path that would have led to frustration or harm. He closes doors not to harm us, but to lead us to something better, something we could not have seen on our own. Often, in the moment, we cannot understand why things had to go the way they did. We cry out, asking why the answer was no, why the opportunity slipped through our fingers, or why the season ended so suddenly. But time and wisdom eventually reveal that what we thought was a loss was actually God making room for something greater. In Scripture, we see this pattern over and over again. Look at Paul in the book of Acts. There were places he wanted to go to preach the gospel, places that seemed right and good, but the Holy Spirit prevented him from entering certain regions. At the time, it might have seemed like a setback or even confusing, but it was God guiding Paul to the exact place where he would have the most impact. That closed door led to the city of Philippi, where Paul's ministry bore great fruit. If Paul had gone where he initially planned, he would have missed the door God had already opened. Sometimes our plans have to fail so that God's plan can succeed. In your life, too, God may have closed some doors you didn't expect. Maybe you were certain about a relationship and it ended. Maybe you prepared for a career and the job didn't come. Maybe you stepped out in faith and the opportunity didn't materialize. It can feel like failure, like wasted time and energy, but God does not waste anything. Every closed door is part of the journey. It is shaping you, refining you, and preparing you for the door that will open in His perfect time. When you walk through that door, you'll look back and thank God for every closed one that led you there. It's often in the seasons of delay that God is doing His deepest work in us. When things are not moving, when prayers seem unanswered, God is cultivating patience, humility, and trust. He is building your faith not in outcomes, but in His character. Closed doors have a way of drawing us closer to Him because they strip away our illusion of control. They bring us to our knees into the quiet places where we learn to listen, to surrender, and to depend entirely on God. And that's where real transformation happens, not in the moments of open success, but in the hidden, silent spaces where God is working behind the scenes. Sometimes God will close a door to redirect your identity. You may have been putting your worth in a title, a role, or a relationship. When that door shuts, you are forced to rediscover who you are apart from what you do or who you're connected to. And in that rediscovery, you begin to see yourself through God's eyes. You learn that you are valuable not because of a position or a platform, but because you are His. You are chosen. You are called, and your purpose is not limited to one opportunity. It is rooted in your relationship with Him. We must come to a place where we stop mourning every closed door and start trusting the God who opens and shuts them. It's not easy. It takes spiritual maturity to say, Lord, thank you for the doors you've closed, even when I don't understand. It takes faith to believe that the pain of today's disappointment may be the foundation of tomorrow's breakthrough. And it takes courage to keep moving forward when the path is not yet clear. But when you trust that God is for you and not against you, every door, whether it opens or closes, becomes part of a greater narrative that leads to life, purpose, and fulfillment. Don't be discouraged by what didn't happen. Don't allow the enemy to convince you that a closed door means you missed your chance. As long as God is still writing your story, There are still doors to be opened, doors you haven't even imagined yet. The purpose God has for your life is not fragile, and it cannot be destroyed by a closed door. In fact, the very thing you're crying over today may be the thing you'll rejoice over tomorrow when you see what God was doing all along. So hold on, trust Him. Let go of what He's closed and prepare your heart for what He's about to open, because when God leads you through the right door, you'll realize that every closed one was worth it. Obedience is one of the most powerful acts of faith a person can demonstrate, especially when the way forward is unclear and the desired doors remain closed. It is not always easy to obey, particularly when there is no immediate reward or when obedience leads to isolation, discomfort, or waiting. But time and time again, God shows us that it is not our striving, our connections, or our cleverness that open the right doors. It is our obedience to His voice, His timing, and His direction. God does not bless manipulation. He does not honor shortcuts. He is looking for hearts that trust Him enough to follow, even when the destination is uncertain. Many people try to force doors open by pushing their own agendas. They network tirelessly, promote themselves, and fight for recognition. While ambition in itself is not wrong, when it becomes a replacement for obedience, it leads to exhaustion and disappointment. Manipulated doors may open temporarily, but they often come with burdens we are not ready to carry. The doors that God opens through obedience, however, come with peace, provision, and divine alignment. They don't bring anxiety, they bring assurance. They don't drain you, they sustain you. Because when it's God who opens the door, He also equips you to walk through it and thrive within it. There are times when obedience simply means staying faithful in the small things. It's continuing to serve quietly when no one sees. It's doing the right thing when others are cutting corners. It's showing up when you don't feel appreciated. It's saying no to a tempting offer that doesn't align with your values. All these moments of obedience are like seeds planted in the soil of your destiny. They may not produce fruit overnight, but in time they grow into a harvest of favor that no one can take from you. Every act of obedience is a step closer to the right door, and not just any door, the door God designed specifically for your purpose. In the Bible, Noah obeyed God's instructions to build the ark long before there was a drop of rain. He didn't understand how or when the flood would come, but he trusted the one who gave the command. His obedience positioned him to be saved, while others who lived by sight and not by faith perished. Imagine how foolish Noah must have looked to those around him, building a massive boat for a storm no one believed in. Yet, when the rain came, Noah didn't have to scramble or strive. The door was already there, already prepared. His obedience positioned him for survival, for leadership, and for legacy. Look at Abraham, who obeyed God by leaving his home and stepping into the unknown. He didn't have a clear map, just a promise. And through that obedience, even in his old age, the right doors opened, doors of inheritance, of generations, of covenant. Abraham didn't manipulate his way to God's promises. He simply believed and obeyed. When God asked him to sacrifice Isaac, he obeyed again, even when it made no sense. That single act of obedience not only spared his son, but also confirmed the blessings God had spoken over his life. Through that obedience came a door that led to blessings for the entire world. Obedience is often forged in seasons of silence. It's easy to obey when things are moving fast, when confirmation comes quickly, and when results are visible. But what about when the door doesn't seem to budge? What about when you're waiting, praying, and nothing changes? It's in those moments that your faith is refined. God is watching not just for your actions, but for your attitude. He's testing your heart. Can you obey without applause? Can you obey without guarantees? Can you obey simply because you trust Him? Waiting is a form of obedience, too. It means resisting the urge to rush ahead of God. It means not settling for the wrong door just because it's open. It means believing that the delay is not denial, but development. Many people missed their door because they couldn't stay still long enough to receive it. They stepped into something premature only to find that the timing was wrong and the cost was heavy. But those who wait on the Lord renew their strength. They rise when others fall. They see clearly when others are confused. Because waiting in obedience produces maturity, clarity, and preparation. Obedience aligns you with divine timing. It puts you in the right place at the right time for the right purpose. When you obey God, you don't have to chase what is already yours. The right door will find you. You won't have to strive, force, beg, or compromise. What is for you will come to you, not because you made it happen, but because you obeyed the one who controls all things. Obedience is not about perfection. It's about direction. It's a daily choice to say yes to God, even in the little things, trusting that He is leading you to something greater. And when the door finally opens, there will be no doubt in your heart that it was God. You'll know it wasn't your doing. You'll walk through it with peace, not pride, and you'll carry the testimony of obedience, not just of what you achieved, but of how you trusted. The door will be a reward, not just a resource. It will reflect God's faithfulness and your faith. And through that door, others will be blessed, encouraged, and inspired. So if you're in a season of waiting, of silence, or of wondering why the door hasn't opened yet, keep obeying. Stay faithful. Don't give up. Because obedience is never wasted. It is the pathway to the right door. One you won't have to open by force, but one that will swing wide by grace. There is something uniquely powerful about the favor of God. It is not earned, not bought, and not something anyone else can take credit for. It comes directly from the heart of God, extended toward those He chooses in ways that are often unexpected and completely beyond human comprehension. While human effort has its place, hard work, discipline, preparation, and persistence all matter. There is a point at which human strength ends, and in that space where your strength runs out, God's favor steps in and does what years of labor could never accomplish. You can have the right qualifications, the best experience, and the strongest connections, and still face closed doors. You can do everything right and still not get the opportunity you thought you deserved. But when God's favor is on your life, none of that can stop Him from opening the right doors. His favor bypasses human logic. It overrides man-made systems. It disregards who said you weren't good enough or didn't belong. God doesn't consult with others about whether or not to bless you. When He chooses to show you favor, it is final, and no opposition can cancel it. Divine favor is not an excuse to be lazy or to sit back doing nothing. Rather, it is the grace that makes your effort effective. You do your part, you sow your seeds, you show up with faithfulness, but you trust God to bring the increase. Favor is the wind behind your sails. You may be rowing diligently, but it's God's favor that propels the boat forward. Without that wind, you'll wear yourself out trying to make things happen, but with it, you'll move further than you ever imagined in far less time. Think of David, the shepherd boy, overlooked even by his own father. When Samuel came looking to anoint the next king, he wasn't invited to the lineup. He didn't have the royal appearance. He had no military training, no impressive record, and no one recommending him. But he had something far more powerful, the favor of God. And when God's favor found him in the field, it brought him into the palace. David didn't campaign to become king. He didn't push his way in. He simply remained faithful in obscurity, and God's favor brought him into visibility. Joseph, too, was a man who experienced divine favor. Betrayed by his brothers, sold into slavery, falsely accused and thrown into prison, yet in every low place, God's favor was with him. It elevated him, gave him influence, and eventually positioned him second only to Pharaoh in all of Egypt. What human strategy could have accomplished that? What resume could have qualified him for that kind of promotion? None. It was only favor. And that same favor is still active today in the lives of those who trust in God. The danger is when we begin to believe that everything depends on us. We begin to lean so heavily on our own efforts that we forget the one who gives the increase. We measure our worth by our accomplishments and our acceptance by our productivity. But that's not how the kingdom of God works. His blessings are not for sale, and his doors don't open based on resume strength or social status. They open according to his will, his timing, and his grace. You may be in a place right now where you feel like your hard work has gone unnoticed. You've been doing everything you know to do, and yet the door remains shut. Don't be discouraged. Keep being faithful, but shift your focus. Pray for favor. Trust in God's ability to elevate you beyond what your hands can produce. Favor can introduce you to rooms you weren't invited to. Favor can place your name on the minds of decision makers you've never met. Favor can unlock opportunities you didn't even know existed. When God's favor is on your life, things start to align in ways you couldn't orchestrate. People show up to help without knowing why. The right words come at the right time. Problems get resolved that you didn't know how to fix. It's not coincidence, it's favor. It's God moving on your behalf because your heart is aligned with his. Favor doesn't always mean life is easy, but it means you have supernatural help navigating. You still have to walk, but favor makes the path smoother. You still have to fight, but favor brings victory. There are people who may look more qualified, more connected, more experienced, but they don't have what you have if you have God's favor. That's why you don't need to be intimidated. You don't need to compete with others for what God has reserved for you. What is meant for you will come to you, not because you chased it perfectly, but because God's hand is on you. You can rest in that truth. You can stop striving and start trusting. You can let go of the anxiety of trying to control every outcome and instead walk confidently, knowing that God is working where you cannot see. The beauty of divine favor is that it makes room for God's glory. When the door opens, when the breakthrough comes, when the opportunity arrives, you won't be able to take all the credit. Others will look at your story and say, only God could have done that. And that is exactly the point. Your success becomes a testimony. Your journey becomes an encouragement. And your life becomes a vessel through which God's goodness is revealed to others. So don't stop putting in the work. But don't put your faith in the work alone. Ask God for favor. Live in obedience. Keep your heart humble. And trust that in the right moment, the favor of God will open a door so perfectly aligned with your destiny that all your years of waiting and working will make perfect sense. Divine favor trumps human effort. And when